Hello friends, today we are going to discuss the derivation of equilibrium income and interest rate as per ISLA model using graphical approach, right? So as per graphical approach, we have learnt how to derive IS curve and how to derive LM curve in our previous part of ISLA model lecture, right? So here we are going to bring together those two lines or two curves, IS curve and LM curve, to find out equilibrium level of income and interest rate, right? The way we use IS equation and LM equations to derive algebraically the equilibrium level of income and interest rate at which conditions of equilibrium in money market and goods market both are satisfied. Similarly here we are going to bring together IS curve and LM curve to find out, right, that equilibrium income, that equilibrium interest rate at which goods market and money market both are in equilibrium. So we have drawn this upwards sloping LM curve, and here we have drawn downward sloping IS curve. Why LM curve is upward sloping? You know that as income rises, right, demand for money rises and rate of interest rises, so it is upward sloping, right? Remember, when we are deriving LM curve, we assume that money supply is fixed, right? Okay, that means if you have another level of money supply, then this LM curve becomes irrelevant. We need to draw another LM curve, right? So this LM curve we are deriving with a given level of money supply, right? This is your IS curve, which is downward sloping, right? What does it tell you? It tells you that when interest rate falls, income rises. When interest rate falls, income rises. Okay, what does it mean? That when interest rate falls, investment rises, and when investment rises, through multiplier, income rises, right? So this is how you get downward sloping IS curve showing inverse relationship between interest rate and income. Okay, now so once we have drawn IS curve and LM curve, right, we can find out the equilibrium point, right, which will be at the intersection point of IS and LM curve, right? So at point E naught, right? So E naught gives us that point or that combinations of income and interest rate at which not only money market is in equilibrium, but also goods market is in equilibrium. Not only goods market is in equilibrium, but also money market is in equilibrium, right? So we derive equilibrium level of income and equilibrium level of interest rate at which the overall economy is in equilibrium, right, by plotting together LM curve and IS curve, right? So this is how we derive equilibrium level of income and interest rate, right? So at this combinations of income and interest rate, the overall economy is in equilibrium, right? Money market is also in equilibrium and goods market is also in equilibrium, right? When I'm saying equilibrium, what does it mean? That economy does not have tendency to move away from that because it is, right, in equilibrium. Okay, it will move away from the point anywhere, or it will move away from any point which shows a combinations of income and interest rate, okay, only when that point or that combination does not fulfill the condition of equilibrium in goods market and money market, right? So it is point E naught is the equilibrium point because the economy does not have tendency to move away from that, right? Now, why point A is not equilibrium point for the economy? Of course, point A gives you that combinations of income and interest rate at which money market is in equilibrium. That means at point A, money market is in equilibrium, but goods market is not in equilibrium. If goods market is not in equilibrium, there would be tendency in the goods market, right, to move away from that point. Why? Because goods market is not in equilibrium, right? When I'm saying goods market is not in equilibrium, that means either output is greater than aggregate demand or output is less than aggregate demand, right? Now, any one of these condition if happens, in that situation you will experience, if Y is greater than aggregate demand, Y will fall, and if Y is less than aggregate demand, Y will rise, right? Because we are doing this ISLM model analysis on the Keynesian theory that aggregate demand determines the level of output in the economy, right? So now when we are at point A, money market is in equilibrium. But what about goods market? Goods market is not in equilibrium. Remember that as long as you are on the right side of IS curve, right, your goods market would always be characterized by these conditions. Y would be greater than aggregate demand, right? Similarly, if you are to the left hand side of IS curve, your economy would be characterized by, or goods market would be characterized by, Y being less than aggregate demand. So when you are on the right side of IS curve, economy is characterized by excess supply of goods and services. When you are on the left hand side of the IS curve, economy is being characterized by excess demand, right? So same thing happens here, that at point A you have got what? You have got output being greater than aggregate demand. So goods market is not in equilibrium, right? What will happen then? Output will fall, right? Output will fall. So there would be a force which will pull this point on A to the left hand side, right? Okay, towards the y-axis. And what will happen to rate of interest then? Obviously, money market is dependent upon goods market. So here, when Y falls, right, when Y falls, because Y is greater than aggregate demand at point A, if Y falls, then what will happen to demand for money? Demand for money would fall. And when demand for money falls, then what happens to the rate of interest given money supply? Rate of interest falls, right? So what you have, that at point A, the two pressures are working. One, Y is going down, right? And when Y falls, that also leads to fall in interest rate, right? So the two forces, one is pulling this point A to the left hand side, and there is another force which is appearing here in terms of rate of interest, is pulling that point A to the downwards, right? Now these two forces, when they work together, ultimately what will happen? The economy will be characterized by a trajectory where income would fall and also interest rate would fall, and ultimately it will keep happening till economy comes to E0, till the economy comes to E0. Similarly, when you are at point B, what do you have? Money market is in equilibrium. But what about goods market? Goods market is not in equilibrium. Then what is there in the goods market? Here goods market is being characterized by what? Y being greater than aggregate demand. Excess productions, right? Sorry, Y being less than aggregate demand. That means there is excess demand in the economy, right? So what will happen? If there is excess demand, as we know that output depends upon aggregate demand. If aggregate demand is higher, output will be higher. If aggregate demand is lower, output would be lower, as per Keynesian model of income determinations, right? So what will happen at point B? At point B, goods market is being characterized by excess demand. That means goods market is not in equilibrium. So what will happen? Output will rise, right? So you have a force operating at point B which has tendency of raising the level of output, right? Now if output rises or income rises, what will happen in the money market, right? In the money market, money demand would rise, and when money demand rises, then what happens to the rate of interest given the money supply? Rate of interest rises. So you have one force which is pulling this point B upward, right? And there is a force which is pulling this point B to the right hand side. So what the economy would be characterized by? Economy would be characterized by a trajectory which will experience rise in output and also rise in interest rate, right? Now, rise in output will keep taking place and rise in interest rate will keep taking place till they reach at this point. The moment they reach at that point, now there is no reason for moving away from that point. Is it clear? Take this point C. Can point C be a condition of general equilibrium in the economy, or can point C represent a situation where goods market and both money market both are in equilibrium? No. Point C is being characterized by goods market equilibrium because it is lying at IS curve, but it is away from LM curve. That means money market is not in equilibrium. So what does it mean? If money market is not in equilibrium, then what is the situation in the money market? Right? Remember that as long as you are towards the right side of LM curve, right, you have got L being greater than M by P, right? L being greater than M by P. So what would happen when you are to the right side of LM curve, right? What do you call? Money demand has to fall, right? Money demand has to fall to make it equal to money supply, right? So you will experience what? That rate of interest rises, right? And with the same logic, when you are on the left hand side of LM curve, the money market is being characterized by L being less than M by P, right? That means there is excess supply of money. So on the right hand side of LM curve, you have got excess demand for money. On the left hand side of LM curve, you have got excess supply of money, right? Okay, or demand deficiency of money, right? Okay, so now when you are at point C, what is the case? At point C, you have money demand is being greater than supply of money. What will happen? Rate of interest would rise, right? Rate of interest would rise because money demand is greater than money supply. When rate of interest rises, what will happen to income? If interest rate rises, investment falls. When investment falls through multiplier, income falls. So you have got another force which is pulling this point C to the left hand side, and there is one force in terms of interest rate which is pulling this point C upward. What will happen? Ultimately, economy would experience, right, a path where you will have interest rate rising and income falling. This process will keep taking place till economy reaches to point E, right? If it is, as long as it is away from E, right, interest rate would keep rising, income would keep falling, right? Similarly, if you are at point D, what do you have? At point D, again, money market is not in equilibrium. The goods market is in equilibrium. But how money market is being characterized? The money market is being characterized by money supply being greater than money demand. Now, when money supply is greater than money demand, what does it mean? You have got rate of interest falling because money supply is more than money demand, so rate of interest would fall. You know determinations of rate of interest through money demand and money supply lines, okay? So rate of interest would fall. So there would be a force which will pull this point D downwards. But when rate of interest falls, what happens to investment? Investment rises, and when investment rises, what happens to income? Income rises. So there is another force which pulls this point D to the right hand side, right? Now both force would basically lead to this point to move towards E, which will be characterized, right? So the economy's trajectory would be characterized by what? That interest rate is falling and income is rising, okay? And this process will keep taking place till the economy reaches at point E, right? So we are calling point E as equilibrium point for the whole economy only because once the economy is at point E, given this LM curve and given this IS curve, right, the economy will not have any tendency to move away from that. But if you are away from that, economy would be characterized by the trajectory which will experience some change in income and interest rate, and those what you call changes in income and interest rate will keep taking place till the economy reaches to these combinations of interest rate and income, right? And that is why we call this equilibrium point, and we call these combinations as the combinations at which goods market and money market both are in equilibrium. The equilibrium can change, equilibrium point can change only when either IS curve shifts or LM curve shifts. Unless these curves shift, right, equilibrium point will never change, it will remain at the same place. This is how we derive equilibrium point as per IS-LM model. This is how we derive equilibrium level of income in the Keynesian framework using IS-LM model. Thank you so much.